Early good morning to most of you guys out there. This is Christ I Am Disciple, aka Anson Phillip. I was thinking about something I talked about yesterday, which has to do with mental health. And it's very early in the morning, so I woke up somewhere around minutes to. I woke up before 4 o'clock, so I've been up for a little bit. But what I want to talk to you guys about a little bit is a little bit on the subject of mental health because there's a lot I think that people are leaving out when it comes to mental health. What do I mean by this? I think that mental health is not exempted from spiritual health. Spiritual health. Actually, spiritual health and mental health are about the same thing, but nonetheless, the point is a lot of people talk about using chemicals and drugs to sedate, usually numb, or take away symptoms from certain individuals. But those very things that they're numbing or downsizing are the very things the individual really define them or defines their identity. So, by muting certain things which are seemingly undesirable, they believe that they're improving the individual's well-being. I'm going to say this. Any drug or chemical that goes into your body, whether you class it as food or not, has some sort of impact on your body. And generally speaking, hold on a second. Somebody in a white pickup just pulled up and then suddenly stopped in front of the house and just drove off just a minute ago. They didn't drop anyone, nothing like that. They just came, stopped with the pickup, and pulled off. Very strange. Anyway, going back to what I was saying, that yeah. So I want to talk to you guys about something deeper. For those of you who are spiritual people, this is going to make a lot more sense to you. To those people who are not spiritual people, or not Christians, or not whatever, this is not going to make as much sense until I start talking about specific things and it'll make sense. Okay? First of all, spiritual things are invisible things. Okay? Spiritual things are invisible things. There are things that you cannot necessarily see. That's what makes them invisible. So you can't literally see these things with your eyes. And I'll give you an example of one of such spiritual things. Love is a spiritual thing. Similarly, your mind is a spiritual thing. You can't see your mind. No one can see a mind. All right? However, there are ways, so your general five senses can't pick it up. Now, there are other things which are not considered spiritual, but they are invisible. That is, you can't see them. One of them is sound. You can't see sound. Okay? But sound actually happens as a result of particles hitting against each other and releasing a frequency of energy, and that's what produces sound. Okay? Now, sound itself you cannot see, but you can track sound by looking at the vibrational energy of particles as they hit each other. Example, you can see sound in waves if sound was to be projected through a medium such as water or bounce off a medium such as water. Depending on the frequency of the sound and the amplitude of the sound, it will create a ripple effect on the water. We can also see it when it affects solid objects that may have some sort of degree of flexibility where the object will vibrate. For example, a speaker box where it vibrates at a particular frequency as a result of the energy of the sound causing the molecules to vibrate against each other, hit each other and vibrate. Okay? So all all atomic and molecular structures vibrate with particular energies. They all vibrate, okay? All of them. Even a still object has vibrational energy. And as a result, certain frequencies of sound are actually emitted from every single object. Every single object emits a certain vibrational energy, a certain frequency of sound. Isn't that incredible? You may not be able to pick it up auditorily, but it is there. Now, the thing about it is that sound we can perceive. We can use our senses, and to some degree, not all sounds, but to some degree, certain frequencies of sounds we can hear. We have a particular range in which we hear sound. Animals may hear it in different frequencies, and etc., right? Now, here's the thing. We have instruments that can detect this sound, even sounds that we cannot hear. As a result, we don't talk about sound as a spiritual concept, but it is a perfect segue to talk about spiritual things. And I'm going to use sound for the minute to include and to show you how important it is that it's not just the emotional well-being of an individual, but the spiritual well-being of an individual that is factored into mental health. Mental health, in fact, the deeper recesses of an individual, the deeper understanding of each individual, if you want to have wellness and wholeness, the truth is you have to go beyond what you know in medicine. You have to go to the spiritual realm. You have to go to, okay, the mental realm is the same thing, but what I'm saying is it's a little bit beyond that. Okay? So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about so that it makes sense to each and every individual. Now, the reason why I speak about this is because I'm going to connect it to movies. And for people who are Christians, you're going to understand this a little bit better than probably people who are not Christians. Or even if you're a religious person of some degree, or someone who believes in things outside of just the present now. So if you're Buddhist or you're Muslim or you're Hindu or something like that, you're going to understand this concept even better than, say, someone else who doesn't, because you would have actually experienced it. All right? And I'm not a mystic, so people don't call me mystic, don't call me a Gnostic, don't call me none of those things, okay? I'm just a normal human being, and these are just principles in which we live in. These are the laws of life. This is just the way how things are wired. I do come from a scientific background, though. So, sound. And this is why mental health, if you want to really address mental health, if you truly want to address mental health, the only way to really address it is by understanding these factors. And my album Invisible goes into great detail on this. Great detail, not just in mental health, but just in basic principles of how we interface with each other and so on. But I want to take the time to, and the thing about it is, okay, so let's just get to it. All right? So, for those people who are into health and wellness, for those people who are into the medical practicing field, Eastern people, they come in and they let you sit down and they talk with you. And as they're talking with you, they're able to pick up your overall vibe, shall we say. I'm using something that's not scientific, but the overall way how you are, your energy, as we call it. Now, let me go back to sound for a minute and connect sound to this. Sound is used in music. Music is a way of expressing the vibe or the energy or the emotive or the emotions of people. It even goes even more subtly into their intentions, their thoughts, their processes. Music is not something you see. We have, notations and stuff that we write out. But music's not something you can see, okay? Music is something that you feel. Correct? The vibe given off of a sound is generated by instruments, but also by an individual, and has come from someone's mind, which is another spiritual thing. Music is spiritual, though music comes from sound, and sound is not necessarily a spiritual thing. However, concepts and ideas and emotions are. Even though the carriers of emotion are chemical. Okay? So, here's the interesting part about all of this stuff that I just said. You can now understand, just based off of sound, just using sound as my fundamental framework, that a person vibrates at certain vibrational energies overall. So the interactions with their chemicals and all their body and how it's all orchestrated will give an overall vibrational energy. That we call a person's aura. We don't call it energy because the person's alive. Living things have an aura, and non-living things have energy. For example, this wall here vibrates at a particular vibrational energy. It is not a still surface, okay? And this is purely scientific what I'm speaking. This is a fact. Like I said before, the couches and the chairs in this room also vibrate with a certain vibrational energy, like pulses with a certain vibrational energy, which is why the frequency of the light and the amplitude of the light, the amplitude gives the intensity of the light, and the frequency of the light determines what color that light is. And there are different colors of white. Okay? So, everything emits energy. And the energy is in various forms. One of them I just spoke to you about is sound. Now, sound needs a medium to transport itself. So in a vacuum, even though the objects will be still vibrating, it needs a medium to continue that vibration carried along, which means the medium has to be air or water or some sort of other molecular structure to conduct itself. And in a vacuum, there's no particular medium to conduct itself, so therefore in a vacuum, sound does not travel. This is important to remember. So, when we talk about the minds of people, and it's a ridiculous concept. It's very, very sort of vague, but at the same time, if we start to break it down, it gets into some really deep territory that I don't want to go into right now. But let me just tell you this. Whoever's viewing this video, you have the potential to, one human being has the potential to completely transform the entire world if they knew how to use that potential. Okay? And I'm talking about like that, real quick. Okay? One individual performing at their maximal capacity would transform the entire world. That's what Jesus did. Now, thankfully, human beings are unaware, and most of us are unaware, and we do not use the full capacity of ourselves except when we are asleep. When we are asleep and dreaming, we are operating at our full mental capacity. The reason being, if we are to speak in psychology, we talk about the conscious and the subconscious mind. When you're awake, we say you're conscious of things. When you're asleep, we say you're not conscious of things. The scary thought is that when you're asleep, you're more conscious than when you are awake. And what's interesting about this is, when you're awake, your mind knows how to filter out information. Otherwise, you'd have information overload. You cannot handle all that information. I don't want to go into certain things because you guys are going to call me Gnostic and mystic, and you're going to label me a certain way. So I'm going to keep away from certain subject matter. I'll leave that for my album, so that when you guys hear the album, it'll make sense to you, and I can introduce these concepts to you so that you'll understand that. Let me put it this way to you. Maybe this will make sense to you. Have you ever thrown one stone into a puddle and see a whole set of waves ripple from it? Then you decide to throw two stones at different places and you see the ripples interface with one another. This is what happens in the world all the time. The stone is the thought. The ripple is the echo effect of that thought. Every time a thought goes into your head, that thought is a ripple that came from someone else. It wasn't your thought. It wasn't that person's thought. It wasn't the other person's thought. Each person gets a modification of the thought because there's an interface with other thoughts. Okay? Now, what I just told you, a lot of you are going to dissect and say that's baloney, and I get it. I understand. But I just told you something that will help you to understand why one individual, if operating at 100%, would change the entire world like that. In fact, faster than that. Okay? Okay, so I'm going to leave that with you. Go back to the sound, because sound does that. We call the interfacing constructive or destructive interference. We know about electric fields. We know about all these things. Well, similarly, your reaction to, let's say, noise, sound, versus your reaction to, say, music. Because you, like everyone else, emits, you literally emit energy, vibrational energy, sound energy. How that interface of the sound coming to you interferes and interfaces with your energy going to it, whether it's weak or not, will determine your response to it. That's why we say some people can vibe well with each other and other people cannot vibe well with each other. This is not pseudoscience. This is science. It's called interference. It can be constructive or it can be destructive. And we can easily see that and translate into simpleton, two people in an argument. It's destructive because they're castigating each other and they're locking horns and they're clashing with each other. Versus two people in a discussion where they are having a discussion. They're not disputing with each other per se, but they are discussing with one another. Even though they don't agree with one another, they're discussing with one another and they're adding constructive things to each other. And as such, they both get along. All right, so why am I saying all of this stuff? Because mental health does not factor in these things. What mental health tries to do is fit an individual into a system. And it doesn't try to understand that individual and what they can bring to the table given how they are wired, what sort of energy they give off, etc. So when I speak about, I'm just giving you one example. I'm not going to go very deep into this. I'm just giving you one example for you guys to think about and for researchers out there to research, that spiritual health supersedes your definition and how you're treating this thing of mental health. Because I'm hearing all this talk about mental health and how important mental health is, but you're isolating it. You're making it an isolationist principle in which the problem is the person and the health of the person. And it doesn't work like that. The health is in the interaction, just as in medicine, how we talk about, people like to find drugs for this and that and the other. No, you have to look at the whole thing, how the interaction, how the, as we say, networks. You have to look at the networks. And similarly, when we talk about mental health, we're really looking at, and this is what these movies, Joker has done, Batman v Superman has done, they're saying the network is not as healthy. And the person is just reflecting that network and the flaws in it. And so you have to understand this, health providers. And one of the people I went and saw when I, my mom and brother suggested that I go see this lady. She's a psychoanalytical consultant. I went to her, and I was speaking about what I thought was my flaws, and she kept on emphasizing that this is not a flaw you have. It is probably that you're making a choice or a decision to use it at times in which your interactions will not be profitable to you or the person, but it is not a flaw. I remember that so well because what it showed me and what it should show each and every one of these people is environment is something very important to remember for context. For an individual to be who they are, and this is what Joker sort of points to us in mental health, and it's not, a lot of people are talking about mental health in the context of this, and I want to speak about it very strongly. They speak about mental health in the context of it being a negative thing, and that these people are mentally challenged or whatever. Let me say to you 100%, and I gotta say it, that you cannot say that given that you only have a restrictive environment in which these people operate. Because you will be surprised at how these people will thrive and do very well in environments in which you are struggling with. In other words, their strengths will be your weakness, and your weakness will be their strength. And then your strength will be their weakness. And so we have to understand this dynamic. But we cannot do it if we do not understand ourselves properly. Because people still are limited by the physical manifestation of ourselves, or let me say it this way. We are locked into what we see too much and not into what we do not see. I'm going to say it again. Because even your perception and understanding of Jesus Christ is based on some physical manifestation of him, as they have the picture up in this house. And that guy, by the way, was a homosexual, by the way, that picture was done off of. And not based on a spiritual manifestation of him. And it's very important to understand spiritual things, because if you don't understand spiritual, I've always emphasized on this, it's very important for you to understand spiritual things, because if you don't understand spiritual things, you will never understand these things that control you. Everybody wants to emphasize that Jesus was a man. He was a man. He's a man in heaven. He's a man. He's a man. He's a man. Nobody's disputing that. No one ever disputed that. But what is a physical presence going to do for you? What has your physical presence ever done for you to help you internally with your character, which is not something that's physical, with love, which is not something that's physical? You see, the substance of who we are, the essence of who we are, we like to say the heart of who we are, is not a physical thing. Which is why God always didn't want us to worship idols. Okay? Because God's much bigger than that. Okay, so, and Jesus is God. Therefore, why should we hold on to a portrait of him? Or we argue about some physical presence of him? That is to say, how do I explain this? That, he was a black man or he was a white man. Who cares? Not to say that it's not true that he wouldn't have been a white man. He was more than likely he wasn't, okay? But that's that's important, but it's not that important to the fact of who was he, character-wise, principle-wise, mentally wise. Jesus is probably the only person who did not have any mental disorders. I put it in quotes. And yet he was seen as crazy as hell. He was seen as demon-possessed by certain people. They accused him of being a demon-possessed. Son of Beelzebub, son of the devil. Okay. So, let me recap to make it simple for all you guys. Whether you're spiritual or not, this video is for you. 1. Just as how sound travels has impact and influence on people, but it also interfaces with itself and comes from different sources and must interface. Similarly, thoughts do the same thing. Okay? 2. A person's mental health is not limited to that person. It is limited to the network of interactions, and the environment also must be included with that person. We can't speak about an individual's mental health without looking at the community's mental health, the society's mental health, the country's mental health, the world's mental health. We can't. 3. This is the last one. Movies and directors have shown us time and time again that mental health is always going to be a reflection of the society an individual lives in. Always. It's always going to show us about ourselves. And mental health cannot be spoken about just in what you eat and what chemicals you use to manipulate the body to make it seem like it's performing a certain way. It is not just an imbalance of chemicals. It is mental health goes beyond that. And if you truly are looking, like Jesus did, to deal with individuals and to heal them, you must go to the core of who they are and touch that. And to be able to do that calls for an understanding of the spiritual, an understanding of the invisible things that affect all of us. And so I wanted to get to that point because I think there's a lot of things. We are informed. The most powerful, I don't care what goddamn chemical you use on a person, if mentally or spiritually this person is not receptive to that, it will not work. And we have seen that with people who have been in suspended animation. If they reject up here the treatments, they don't work. Now, what people have done is they have messed with up here so that an individual is not as cognitive or as aware as they should be. But if that individual at any point in time, because it all comes down to choice, rejects what is being dealt to them, the medication will not work. We've also seen the reverse effect with placebos, the placebo effect, where individuals have set their minds up here to be well and have started running towards the prize because they understand and how they feel, etc., and they have regenerated and healed and recovered. And this is because up here, and by extension, around that individual has been changed. It is a mixture of nature and nurture. It is not one or the other. And what we have been doing is stabbing in the dark to take care of symptoms. We've not been dealing with cures. So I just wanted to say that to my medical community, open their minds a little further. I'm not trying to hit you with hocus pocus nonsense. I don't have time for that. The album Invisible will drop hopefully soon, because I've been working on it for a very long time. I've been also deliberating it in my head and trying to figure out how to get these concepts across to people so that it's visible, it's palatable. I'm trying to take the spiritual and make it something that's kind of physical so people can actually see. And once, because people are so honed into physical and, you know, the five senses, and they need to see, touch, and taste things. I'm trying to make it a palatable something so that they can actually see it, touch it, taste it, and feel it. And I think by doing that, it'll transition them into what they can't see, touch, taste, and feel. So that's where we're trying to go. A lot of music videos do that with these concepts. They use metaphors. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm literally going to be trying to get a physical manifestation of these invisible things to you so that you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. Okay? So that's what the album Invisible is. Yes, it's a Christian album. It always is centered around Jesus Christ. I'm just breaking it down a little bit more for you guys to understand. This is the reason why faith is a connection to Jesus. Jesus is not visible to you and I right now, but he is ever present. And the connection to that is faith. And there's a science behind that too. I'll catch you guys later. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Check out Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder is actually, he grew up as a Christian Scientist. So a lot of his movies have Christocentric themes, but Zack Snyder breaks it down in a way in which you can visually see these themes. Zack doesn't talk a lot, but if he had to talk, he'd probably have a lot to say. And I'm a guy that generally doesn't talk a lot. I like to show you things, and that's why I prefer to do music videos and music on things, because I think that way you would understand a lot more than if I could ever tell you anything. You'd actually see it for yourself, feel it for yourself, etc. So music's a very powerful thing. Okay? It's very powerful. And audio-visual, it's a blessing that we actually had audio-visual mediums. We've not used it responsibly. I am not the most responsible person in the world either. I have slipped and fallen a number of times. Just about a couple minutes ago, I was crying like a baby about my mom's death. I didn't realize it. It just all came down on me after seeing a video with Joaquin Phoenix talking about the death of River Phoenix, his brother, and what the family was trying to do to keep the brother alive. You know, there's a lot of cliches out there. And I just want to go through that because I think what impressed me to do this video more than anything else was the loss of my mother. And it's strange because the loss of my father didn't have as much of an impact on me as the loss of my mother. But I've done a lot of strange things, but I do understand that the connection between her loss and the things I've been doing that are not myself. I don't feel like myself when I do them. But it is what it is. And one of the things I've realized, and I just wanted to share this with a lot of people so that they would benefit from it as I go through my daily movements, is that a lot of people are experiencing the very same thing I am. Okay? And you're not alone. This is not something that's unique to one individual or human being. Again, because we have this ripple effect and we interact with each other and all of this stuff, like I said before, this is not unique, okay? Even the reactions to these things are not unique, okay? And so I wanted to say to whoever may be going through whatever, I don't know what's going on with you, with your life or whatever, that you need to understand you're not the only person in the world going through this. I know this will be hard for you to understand at the moment because you're so zeroed in into the feelings, the thoughts, the processing of all kinds of things. But you're not the first person. You're not going to be the last person to go through these kinds of things. So I just want to let you know a lot of people make it through it. Okay? A lot of people make it through it. You will never, if you love the person especially, you will never get over the fact that the person's gone. That's something that's just going to be with you for the rest of your life. It's okay. Now, it was okay for me when my dad and my grandmother died, and they all died around about the same time. Okay, my grandmother died the year before my dad died, and then my dad, after he passed away, about 5 years later, my mom died. Okay, in my hands. She was in my hands when she died. And even though she died in my hands, and it's probably the best way to go, and, you know, she tried to live. I was praying for her to live at the time, which was beautiful, if you think about it. And she came back for a minute, and then she left. But the thing about it is this, that even with all of that going down, you're still going to feel it. You really are going to feel it. And you have to understand that I think the best way to deal with these issues is to talk about, yes, but also to understand how much that person had an impact on you. It's sad that usually, even though I did value my mom and I understood that and I told her that millions of times, even when she was well, um, that you really don't truly understand that until the person's truly gone. And what I can say to people is, if you have a thankful spirit, you wake up every day very thankful, that's a start to a wonderful life, because you have a pretty much a clear slate on things. And I'll say this to you guys who have suffered loss, whoever you may be. I think this video is for you. You must understand that even when you suffer loss, it's okay. And even when you don't know how you're going to react, you don't know what's going to do, it's okay as well. And I know that sounds weird as hell. I've done some really crazy shit. I can't even start to fathom. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? I've done some crazy shit. Okay, I've done some crazy stuff. I haven't killed anyone. If that's what you're worried about. No, I haven't done that, but I've done a lot of destructive behavior on so many different levels. I can't explain it to you. I feel like I'm not myself sometimes when I do certain things, because I just know that's not me. But I'll tell you this, it's a way of processing. And sometimes that's just the road you have to walk. And there's nothing else you can do about it. And it sounds strange because we all have choice. You can choose not to. But sometimes you don't. Okay? And when you don't do that, you have to give yourself the breathing room and understand it's okay. You're not going to be this way all the time. You're not going to go down this road all the time. But it's something that you're going to have to just allow your system. This is your way of your system handling the situation. And for each individual, it's a little bit different. A lot of times we have social norms, we have expectations put upon us by other people. And it's okay. There's nothing wrong with having expectations. The problem is, and daytime is coming, I wanted to just go outside and talk with you guys still at the same time. You have to understand, though, you cannot, you'll have expectations for yourself as well. You cannot shut yourself down and become so despondent and even, God forbid, hate God or try to move away from God because you're doing some crazy stuff that you just never expected yourself to do. All right? And you're doing some really dumb stuff that you're like, dude, what am I doing? This is what you got to understand. This is your mind and body's way of processing things at the point in time. There's no excuses for it. It's dumb. But it's something that you're doing. And when you're going through that process, a lot of us don't allow people to see that process. A lot of us feel we just recovered and everything was great. And I tried to make it my business to let you guys see the process. See the ups and downs where I could. I'm not a guy that likes to curse and swear. I was cursing and swearing like a sailor. I've been doing a lot of other things besides that, but the point is, that's just the way how I process it. And it's not the most healthy thing in the world, obviously, but there's all these different emotions and feelings that are pent up inside that need to be released. And you're going to do some really weird stuff. You're going to just be walking along, cool, and then all of a sudden, you may get about a depression, or you might just get very, very a high tension of very intense anxiety. Not anxiety in the sense of fear, but anxiety in the sense that you just want to punch somebody or something like that. And it can be extremely violent, and so you'll find yourself going through all these ebbs and flows of emotion. And you have to find an outlet to release them somewhere. You can't keep them inside, it'll destroy you. So you have to find an outlet to do so. Maybe it's just go out and punch a punching bag, or just scream and yell as loud as you can in the middle of a field. All right? But you have to find an outlet for it to release it. All right? You can't just channel that energy into something, because then you get how do we put it? You get kind of paranoid and a little bit out of sync. You get really pointed, and it still won't release that energy. You have to release it. So I know some people, they go out and they do a shouting contest, and they go into a game where they can shout a lot. All right, but even then you might be shouting, but you may shout out of rage, or you may be shouting out of just great pain. I know, because I told you I just had two gut wrenching. I mean, I was gasping for air, tears and sobbing, like I was stifling under my mic. And it's an intense feeling, and you get that over time, and it's okay. All right? That's for people suffering loss, but there are other things that can go through. And it's not a disorder. As strange as it sounds, because it's there, you're like, man, that's not myself. Why am I so moody? Why am I so emotional? No, it's not a disorder. It's natural for human beings to do something like that. Okay? It's natural. I remember for years, one of my friends, he died in a violent accident. And I couldn't even, I saw the body and everything, but I couldn't even think about the dude. I couldn't process anything. I know of family members who, they said they haven't even tried to process the shit yet. They haven't sat down and process. That's dangerous, but at the same time, I get it. Their system can't handle that stuff. They're going to shut down, and they're not going to be functional at all. I was a zombie for a couple of days. I wasn't even eating, sleeping, nothing. I was just there like a zombie, okay? My system couldn't even handle it. So even the people who move on and they say they're strong people, know it actually manifests. It will manifest itself in an illness or something later on in your life if you just keep it in. So it's very important that you find an outlet to release the stuff. The very day that my mom passed away, I go into a certain zone, and I immediately shut out people completely. I shut everybody down. I spoke with the Lord, and I bawled, I cried, I did everything. Okay? And it helped me to make it through the funerals part of it. While everybody else was losing their minds, I was cool because I was able to have vented a lot and processed a lot. And I was processing as the whole thing was elapsing, but I had the hope that she would live. So you have to understand that a lot of things that would happen to you, and some of the stuff, I'll be honest with you, it's just downright just the opposite of what your values are and what you perceive things to be. So it's like almost like you feel not only like a hypocrite, but you also feel like you're undermining your whole faith and everything. Don't worry about that. Okay, that's part of the process. Not everybody can make it through. Different people wired differently. I'm wired differently. I don't know about it. We're all wired differently. And that's why I said, but mental health, someone who is a spiritual person can see beyond the obvious to the core of the matter because they have a particular perception of things and they understand, certain, dynamics that happens in a community. If you have a fixed set of ways of looking at people, Jesus was not like that. Jesus could see beyond. That's why when Mary Magdalene came up to Jesus, where they dragged Mary around Magdalene's tail up to Jesus, he saw the whole situation. He could see it clearly because he could feel the energy and just everything off of what they were doing. He knew what they were coming for. He knew they were insincere. So he knew that from the get-go. He felt that, and he saw it, and he could perceive it. Okay? And so if you never doubt your first feeling of a person. Right? Never question the first. And I actually had a cousin who sent me that as well, because it's an energy that the person's coming with. We hear this all the time. But I'm going to break it down. I'm really going to break it down so you can understand just what that means. Okay? But like I said before, people have auras. And so the aura a person will come with, the summation of all their energies, the closer you get to that person is the stronger that aura will be. And that's what you feel. And that gut feeling you have initially about that is absolutely 100% correct. It's always right. Okay? Now, spiritual people know about that, and, especially people who are Pentecostals and that kind of stuff. They would know about that stuff. But the way how you articulate it for people who are not in any way religious or spiritual, or consider themselves spiritual, that is to actually show them from factual information, from scientific information. Okay? That's the only way. Because if that's why I said, when I'm doing an album or whatever I'm doing, I'm going to articulate it in a manner that people understand, and it'll be very clear to them what I'm talking about. And that will make a lot of sense. Invisible will make a lot of sense to a lot of people, and open them up to the suggestion of Jesus the Christ. It'll open it up because it's Jesus Christ, like Superman, is an idea that is so far removed from people they can't connect with it. You're talking about perfect human, did no wrong. What the hell is that? We don't know about that. None of us. No human being that ever was born, except for Jesus, knows about that. Okay? That's a disconnect right there. Nobody's gonna, and then now it's a brainwashing, because we've seen Christians do all kinds of crazy stuff in the name of Jesus. In the name of Jesus. So immediately there's a huge narcissism towards that. Just like Superman. That's what I like about Zack Snyder. Jesus Christ is always going to be controversial, because people who represent Jesus are faulty. And even those who decided, I'm going to cling on to Jesus and rep him, they done some crazy stuff and people exposed it. Up to even in the Bible, dudes be talking about, man, I got a thorn in the flesh. That'd be Paul. Peter was a hypocrite. He was eating with the Gentiles and talking about, I don't deal with Gentiles. But he eating with the Gentiles. You know what I'm saying? He was apostle. He was the first apostle. My point being, it's hard for people to grab hold on biblical understandings and the Bible in and of itself. I've been killing it, throwing scriptures at people all the time. The Bible is not what they preach to you in most churches. It's not. The only way you really going to understand the Bible is if you read it for yourself. If you read it for yourself. Okay? It's like a Zack Snyder film. If you guys are Snyder, you guys love Zack Snyder, you really do, you'll love the Bible. Because it has multiple meanings to one little sentence. One little sentence means so many different things. And unpacking it is so much fun. But it's hard to live. So, I just wanted to share that with you guys. It's another lengthy video, probably almost going an hour. Don't look at me, I'm not a perfect person at all. In fact, I messed up this morning even. I messed up on a lot of things. I'm not a perfect person. I'm never proud, I'm never happy to say that, because I would prefer to be a perfect person. I'll be honest with you. I don't know about you guys, but I prefer to be a perfect person. What I mean by that is function perfectly in what I was designed to do. Function perfectly as myself. As what I believe myself to be. Or even beyond that. To supersede that. I love to be that. Because I know the potential is there. Like each and every one of you guys. To operate at 100% of your capacity as you. In your community. Can't be devoid. You cannot be separate from your community. You cannot be separate from other human beings. We were social creatures. We were made to operate in sync with each other. And bring an effect that's greater than the sum of its parts. And it's a beautiful thing. And that's what Jesus is. Jesus is that interaction. Jesus is that positive interface, that constructive interference that amplifies the effect and creates a harmony that is blasts through the universe and the cosmos like no other. So that's what I just want to leave you guys with. The language I use is a little different to what you're used to hearing. I don't use some of the terms that everybody else says. But it's the same thing I'm saying, maybe in some more detail in some areas, less detail in other areas. But I'm here to speak to all of you guys out there. All of you, whoever listened to this video, if you actually went through 50 minutes of it. I want you guys to know one thing. You mean a lot to me and to everyone else. Your little movements, as small as they may seem to you, are huge movements. And I've been doing these videos for many times. Even my music videos talk about the connection we all have with each other. And you are connected to me. I am connected to you. I am more than this physical presence you're seeing digitally represented on the screen. I reach everybody in the world all the time. And so do you. When you stop thinking of yourself as a physical form like this, and you begin to understand that you are a collection of ideas and thoughts, and you take them and you modify them to what, and then you broadcast them. When you begin to understand that, now we are beginning to talk about mental health. Now we're beginning to talk about spiritual bodies, the church, because less emphasis is put on that and more emphasis is put on route stuff. People speak in language that's by route, but they don't understand the basic principles that we all are here doing all the time. And I can go into a lot more detail on that some other time. And I'm not a guru. It's just information I know. I'm happy to share it. I'm not keeping it a secret. We're not going to keep no secret knowledge. Maybe the people who know about these things keep it a secret, but it's no secret. I'm going to share it to everybody. I don't care. It's not my information. We all wired the same way. Okay? So, I knew this from a while back. About 12 years ago. But I began to understand it more and more with time. And obviously, I have not mastered it. I'm still learning about it. And there's a lot to know. But Jesus, I'm going to say this to all you guys out there, Jesus is pivotal to that. And to be able to really have a positive effect on the world and people around you, you're going to need him. But you cannot think of Jesus as just some physical presence of a man. I'll say it again because a lot of you are going to misquote me on this. You cannot just think about Jesus as just some physical presence of a man. A man is much more than his physical presence. In fact, I would say 90% of a man is invisible and 10% of him is visible. And I can easily explain that to you by saying, take a dead cadaver right now. Take it. You can see it. But that cadaver is not a man. Why? Because the life has left it. So 10% of the man is his physical form. But his life is 90% of him. You can have all the chemicals, right? This is for those scientists out there that talk about, oh, thoughts are just chemical reactions. And you can have all the chemicals in the world, my friend. You cannot take a corpse and make it think and make it speak. You can take it and plug it into an electrode and your AI and all that shit. It will not do it. Not like a living man. Therefore, we are mostly invisible. Okay? And I will tell you this. You are much more. You go beyond, physically speaking, you go beyond your physical presence all the time. And other human beings know that. We can sense it. But we have been trained to filter that out. Like I said, sometimes the problem is the system, not the individual alone. So I'll leave that with you guys to think about. You'll say, oh, this guy with all his strange thoughts and his strange reasonings. Okay, fine. Whatever. But I'll leave you guys to think about that as I go on my way today. I'm going to try and make it to the hour. My name is Anson E. Phillip. I am also known as Christ I Am Disciple. I am also known as What You Need when it comes to boxing. You can check my 2 channels. This one, Christ I Am Disciple, covers film and film that has meaningful messages. But it also covers my music and some of the things that I observe, which I would like to share with you guys like this discussion today. The other channel is What You Need. What You Need was there to educate people on the sport of boxing, pugilism, in a way that people generally don't think of it as. They mostly think of it as violence and about having power to overpower opponent and stuff. So we tried to break down what boxing really is to them. I have not quite achieved that success at what I was aiming to do. Even on Christ I Am Disciple, I ended up cursing and swearing and stuff. And so some of my delivery is quite questionable. My content is not too bad, but my delivery is horrible sometimes. You'll have to excuse that for those of you who like more civil discussions. So I thought I'll leave it with you guys with. I'm changing. Don't worry. What You Need is trying to get back into line. Don't worry. But if you look at my earlier videos, you see what I was trying to do. Anyway, back to what I was saying. If you guys like these videos, you can subscribe to my channel. You can share my videos. You can also donate to my channel via Western Union or MoneyGram. Western Union or MoneyGram. You'll have to still get my details about that. Until I can get a place to online collect monies, I can't do online donations. I'm sorry about that, okay? All right, guys. So that's it for me. Hope you guys have a good one. Those of you who see this video, don't forget to share it. And you can comment on the video. Feel free to do so. I'm going to catch you guys later. I'm What You Need. Peace.